afternoon. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. And today, let us start by checking on the financial bill protests that have been going on in Kenya. The Kenya Security Service officers used tear gas and bullets to disperse hundreds of protesters protesting in Nairobi on Tuesday against tax increases. Kenya is facing a severe cost of living crisis exacerbated by controversial tax increases due to the debated in parliament this Tuesday afternoon, through critics arguing that the increases will add to an already difficult situation. Footages revealed a tense scene as heavily armed security forces chased young protesters through the tear gas-filled streets, with the protesters witnessed holding signs, shouting and trying to hide. Some of these who were arrested realized shouting, quote-unquote, reject the financial bill. According to the media reports, facing financial strain, the government defends the proposed measures, projecting they would generate 346.7 billion shillings, that is $2.7 billion, equivalent to 1.9% of GDP, and reduce reliance on external borrowing. Listen in.
We are crying, and we are really crying. We are really crying as citizens. We are really crying. Drop the finance bill. Drop it. Drop it. It is going to kill us. It is taxing us so much. We don't have anything. We are young boys suffering on the streets. Help us, President. Help us.
Against the regime, we will fight for our rights. Wazazi wetu hawaelewi, sisi tunaelewa, we are not our parents. We will mess you up, kwa sababu we are working hard, ndo tuweze kujikimu, na unachukua pesa yote, haiwezekani.
We'll keep you more updated on the same. Now, moving on, the United Nations has recently taken the action to deliver crucial aid to Haiti in response to the ongoing violence, as well as prepare the country for the upcoming hurricane season. The United Nations announced the delivery of aid to the Caribbean nation in assistance to the hundreds of displaced families and the ongoing violence and the looming threat of the hurricane season. The aid delivery comes at a critical time as Haiti faces a multiple crisis. Let's get the full report.
The United Nations has stepped in to deliver aid to Haiti as the country faces ongoing violence and prepares for the upcoming hurricane season. The UN announced on Tuesday that 2 cargo flights carrying 55 tons of medicine, shelter, and hygiene materials have landed in the capital, Port-au-Prince.
Cargo flights organized through the World Food Programme landed in the capital, Port-au-Prince, carrying 55 tons of medicine, shelter, and hygiene materials. These supplies will be used to assist displaced people and to prepare for the hurricane season. WFP's School Meals Program has now distributed some 30 million meals across the country since the start of the current school year. Of these, nearly 17 million meals have been provided through its program that supports local farmers. As we previously said, the education sector has been severely impacted by the recent violence, with more than 200,000 children and 4,000 teachers affected in the West and Artibonite.
The aid is aimed at assisting displaced families and helping them prepare for the hurricane season. Haiti is bracing for a severe hurricane season that runs from June to November and has further been destabilized by a gas fuel crisis. The UN estimates that 360,000 people in Haiti are currently displaced due to the ongoing violence. Farhan Haq also condemned attacks on health personnel and facilities in Haiti, emphasizing the need to protect those on the front lines of healthcare during times of conflict. The UN's aid delivery to Haiti comes at a critical time as the country continues to deal with multiple crises.
A powerful earthquake struck Kashmir County in northeastern Iran's Khorasan Razavi province on Tuesday, resulting in at least 4 deaths and over 120 injuries. The magnitude of 5.0 quake hit a depth of 6 kilometers underground and was centered 5 kilometers from the Mogan Razavi Khorasan province. According to the United States Geological Survey, Iran is still recovering from the devastating 2003 bomb earthquake, which had a magnitude of 6.6, killing tens of thousands. Here's a report.
State television aired footage of the aftermath of the quake, showing first responders working in a street where all buildings were reduced to rubble. The United States Geological Survey said the earthquake hit a depth of 10 kilometers 6 miles. The U.S. Geological Survey reported the quake epicenter to be 5 kilometers from Mogan, NATO Concerns province, at a depth of 6 kilometers. The United Nations estimate that Iran experiences around 10,000 earthquakes annually. The country is still recovering from the 2000 bomb earthquake, which had a magnitude of 6.6 and killed tens of thousands. In a separate incident last year, a 5.9 magnitude earthquake in the city of Kho, Western Abadan province, killed at least 3 people and injured more than 800. At the same time, the Meha News Agency reported that 70 villages were damaged.
We send our condolences to the nation of Iran, and also the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement on Wednesday in Pyongyang, a pact including a mutual defense clause, marking a significant shift in the strategic balance in Northeast Asia. The agreement includes a joint defense pledge where both countries agreed to provide military and other assistance with all available means if any of them are attacked. Here is a full report.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a deal with North Korea's Kim Jong-un on Wednesday that included a mutual defense pledge on Russia's most significant move in Asia for years that Kim said amounted to an alliance. Putin's pledge overhauls Russia's entire post-Soviet policy on North Korea, just as the United States and its Asian allies try to gauge how far Russia could deepen support for the only country to have tested a nuclear weapon this century. On his first visit to Pyongyang since July 2000, Putin explicitly linked Russia's deepening of ties with North Korea to the West's growing support for Ukraine and said Moscow could develop military and technical cooperation with Pyongyang. After talks, they signed a comprehensive strategic partnership pact, which Putin said included a mutual defense clause in the case of aggression against either country. Kim praised Russia for making what he cast as an enormously significant strategic move to support North Korea, which was founded in 1948 with the Soviet Union backing. Depending on the exact words of the pact, which was not released, it could be a dramatic shift in the strategic balance in Northeast Asia by placing Russia's heft behind North Korea, which faces South Korea, backed by the United States, across the heavily fortified demilitarized zone. While North Korea has a defense treaty with China, it does not have an active military collaboration with Beijing like it has developed with Russia over the past year. North Korea also signed a 1961 treaty with the Soviet Union that included promises of mutual support in the event of an attack. China, the North's main political and economic benefactor, had no immediate response. Putin's courting of Kim, which has included gifts of limousine and a tour of Russia's new space launch center, has alarmed the United States and its Asian allies. The conflict in eastern Ukraine began in 2014 after a pro-Russian president was toppled. Ukraine's Maidan Revolution annexed Crimea, with Russian-backed separatist forces fighting Ukraine's armed forces.
Protesters at rallies in Tel Aviv and across the country called for a new elections and the return of the hostages held in the captivity in Gaza hours after the military announced of 4 hostages who were rescued alive from the central Gaza Nuseirat camp. Some of the protests call for an immediate ceasefire in the fighting between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, urging their government to seek other paths towards peace in the region. United Nations experts warned against the collective punishment for the people of Gaza, predicting a humanitarian crisis, claiming that hell was settling in for the region. Here is the report.
While joy over the rescue of Noah Agamani, Shlomo Ziv, Almog Medjen and Andrei Kozlov was evident at the protests, so too anger over the conduct of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government.
We don't trust our government. We don't believe like they're doing the right thing. They're doing it like just for their own sake to stay in like the city.
In Tel Aviv, police said that 33 protesters were arrested during demonstrations and all roads near the protest were open to traffic around midnight.
They've been too long in this position. They I don't know, like they could change. And it's and you can see like the people who's working, the people who's going to the army, the people who's doing a lot of stuff are like most of them are protesting. Most of them are want the change for the government.
The protesters were apprehended by the police on horseback before a water cannon was brought in to complete the dispersal.
Most of the Israelis don't like people die in Gaza. Most of the people here just want a peace, just want to live like freely and without like scare in the north to just all the bomb. We don't want it.
The Times of Israel witnessed several arrests in which police tackled demonstrators to the ground.
We should bring the hostages home. I think we have a moral responsibility towards them and to stop the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
At the same time, police on horseback were seen pushing protesters off of Democracy Square and onto the sidewalk on Kaplan Street.
And that international news brings us to our first break. Next, we'll talk about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who criticized the United States for withholding weapons. We will cover that. And should French footballers talk about politics? A good question that is coming up. This concerns the EU elections. We'll discuss more. And NATO is worried about Russia that may support North Korea missile program. We'll tell you more about it. While the IDF claims it eliminated a key Hezbollah operative. We'll also talk about the Ukrainian conflict, a resolution calling for Russia on table. Topics you can't afford to miss. Stay tuned with us.
Hi guys, welcome to the Youth Hub, the show that gets your group on.
Mahali nikakula chapati ya brown haina sukari. Alafu nikatoka hapo nasikia nimechoka hadi mgongo, siwezi panda stairs. Kumbe nilikuwa nimeanza kuzeeka.
Kumbe kuanza kula
They can do follow up. Lakini unapata hii alifanya in secret, imeshatokea. So even the boy anaogopa kujitokeza. Hey,
but what about today? What about the modern fathers? Modern fathers ni yeye mwenye anaweza amua I'm going to babysit nilikuwa wamesema.
Mimi nilimera sijui kama nilifungwa diaper to be honest. Mimi nilikuwa mtu wa napi.
Ulikuwa napi enzi za
napi unafungwa
na kafil.
Trust me watu wengi.
Pesa iko kwa wingi, unga ni pesa. Ukiona tu unga ya ngano unajua ishakuwa milionea.
Ni kweli, ukikanda unga unakuwa na do. Utakosaje kuwa na do?
Baby stuff are expensive.
Diapers kwanza. Wow.
It's a bit really expensive, my friends. If you're not ready for motherhood things are kind of nice.
So through the 4 gospel books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, we can know the heart of Jesus in depth.
그리고 우리가 느끼는 그 예수님을 성경을 통해 느낄 수 있어서 너무 감사합니다.
And the Jesus that we can feel him through the scriptures, and I'm very thankful about that. Jesus Christ came to this earth for our sins.
지셨고,
he carried our sins.
십자가에 못 박혀 죽어 죄의 형벌을 당하셨고,
and he was crucified, and he received the punishment for sins.
무덤에 들어가셨다가,
and he was put into the tomb.
사흘 만에 부활하셨습니다.
and resurrected in 3 days. days.
이것이 우리가 말하는 복음입니다.
This is the gospel that we speak.
예수님께 우리 죄를 위해 죽으신 이야기.
About how Jesus died for our sins. The purpose of Jesus being crucified.
우리 죄를 담당하기 위하여 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으셨습니다.
He was crucified to pay for our sins.
예수 십자가에 못 박혀 죽으심으로 우리 죄가 분명히 씻어졌는데
And through Jesus being crucified, clearly our sins have been washed clean.
참 안타깝게도 많은 사람은 여전히 죄인이라고 말합니다.
However, unfortunately, many people still say that they are sinners.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly criticized the Biden administration for withholding weapons and ammunition from Israel during the ongoing conflict with Hamas. Netanyahu's criticism comes despite the U.S. having only halted one weapons delivery since the war began in October, while the U.S. President Joe Biden faces increasing pressure from the fellow Democrats to curtail or condition military aid to Israel due to the Palestinian civilian casualties, but has declined to do so. Here is the full report.
President Joe Biden posted a shipment of high payload munitions concerned about a potential major Israel attack in Rafah, Gaza. This post is the only confirmed instance of withheld shipments. Biden has criticized Netanyahu's approach to the war, citing civilian casualties and blockade.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel.
The Biden administration has also raised concern about potential international law violation by Israel, but has not confirmed any that would warrant cutting off aid completely. Some U.S. lawmakers have pushed back against Biden's decision, where progressive Democrats have called for more pressure on Israel.
Tensions are escalating on the global stage as NATO raises alarms over possible Russian assistance to the North Korean missile and the nuclear ambitions. The concerns came on Tuesday as Russian President Vladimir Putin embarked on a landmark visit to Pyongyang, his first visit in 24 years, pledging to deepen ties with the nuclear-armed nation amidst fears of destabilization in the Northeast Asia. NATO Secretary Generals Jens Stoltenberg and the United officials called for a vigilance, underscoring the implications of strengthening Russia-North Korean relations on the regional security. Here is more report.
On a state visit for talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Putin vowed to deepen trade and security ties, positioning Russia against the United States, a close ally of South Korea. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told a joint press briefing after talks with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Russia's war in Ukraine was being propped up by China, North Korea, and Iran, who all wanted to see the Western alliance fail.
We are, of course, also concerned about the potential support that Russia provides to North Korea when it comes to supporting their missile and nuclear programs. We see how much military support Russia gets from North Korea, but also from Iran.
Stoltenberg highlighted a broader concern about how global security challenges intersect, linking Europe's security to developments in Asia. He emphasized NATO's forthcoming summit in Washington next month, signaling an intent to strengthen partnerships with key Asia-Pacific allies, including Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan.
And how China is propping up their war economy. And this is also one of the reasons why at NATO and at the NATO summit here in Washington next month, we will further strengthen our partnership with our partners in the Asia-Pacific region, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan, also to address the fact that the challenges they see, we see in Asia and Asia Pacific are directly linked to the challenges we face in Europe. And let me also say that I also fully agree that China cannot have it both ways. They cannot continue to have normal trade relationships with countries in Europe and at the same time fuel the biggest war we have seen in Europe since the Second World War.
Blinken said Putin's visit to North Korea was a sign of his desperation to strengthen relations with countries that can support his war in Ukraine.
The Israeli Defense Forces IDF stated it eliminated a key Hezbollah operative, Mohammad Mustafa Ayub, in a drone strike in the southern Lebanon. Ayub was a senior commander in the Hezbollah Elite Radwan Force, responsible for planning and executing numerous terror attacks against Israeli civilians and communities over the past few months. Let's get the report.
Mohamed Ayub, described by the IDF as a high-ranking commander within Hezbollah's elite Rwandan force, was reportedly responsible for arranging numerous attacks involving anti-tank missiles against Israeli civilians, communities, and security personnel. The strike specifically targeted Ayub while he was traveling in a vehicle in the Konain area of southern Lebanon.
To the north now, yesterday the IDF eliminated the terrorist Mohammad Mustafa Ayub. He was a key operative in the rocket and missile department of the NASA unit of the Hezbollah terrorist army in southern Lebanon. From southern Lebanon, Ayub was key in terror attacks against Israeli communities. We say again, whether through diplomacy or by military means, we are impeding Hezbollah's military buildup. Their stockpiling of weapons for terror against Israelis is being dealt with into Gaza.
In response to Ayub's elimination, Hezbollah has retaliated against Israeli positions along the border, including a rocket strike that wounded an IDF soldier. The IDF has responded with airstrikes on Hezbollah sites in Hiam and Rab al-Thalathain, as well as artillery shelling near Houla. The escalation in violence has led to concerns of a wider conflict, with both sides trading blows and neither showing signs of backing down. The situation remains volatile, with the potential for further escalation and violence along the border. The IDF's operation to eliminate Mohamed Ayub is part of broader efforts aimed at reducing Hezbollah's operational capabilities and deterring future attacks. As the situation continues to evolve, international observers and regional stakeholders remain vigilant within fears of wider conflict and instability in the Middle East.
The United States ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, stated that Russia's participation was essential for a meaningful peace talks to resolve the Ukrainian conflict. She underlined that while the US would continue to support Ukraine defense against Russian aggression, Moscow's involvement was as well crucial for any lasting solution. Let's listen.
The Ukrainian conflict has been ongoing for years with no clear end in sight. The United States has been a key player in the conflict, providing military aid and support to Ukraine. However, U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield has emphasized the need for Russia to be at the table for meaningful peace talks. She believes that Moscow's participation is crucial for any lasting solution to the conflict.
But for everything this summit was, it's important to note what it was not. Namely, the summit was not a formal negotiation. After all, a negotiated end to the war will require both Russia and Ukraine at the table in good faith.
In a joint press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron, President Joe Biden reiterated the United States' commitment to supporting Ukraine. He warned that Russia will not stop at Ukraine and that all of Europe will be threatened if it continues its aggression. The US and European leaders have reiterated their commitment to supporting Ukraine in its conflict with Russia.
Malaysia has been preparing to formally join the BRICS group emerging economies, according to Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who stated Malaysia had made a decision and would soon begin the application process, likely seeking support from the current BRICS member of South Africa. Anwar praised China's rise, proposing it had brought them to a glimmer of hope, bringing checks and balances in the world. He described Chinese President Xi Jinping as an outstanding leader as well as a good leader. Here is more report.
Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has announced his country's commitment to joining the BRICS organization, a move that signals a shift in the country's geopolitical stance. In an interview, Ibrahim revealed that Malaysia will soon begin the formal process to join BRICS, a group of emerging economies that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The Prime Minister praised Malaysia's trade links with China and hit out at the dominance of the US dollar, citing the benefits of using local currencies. He also emphasized the importance of remaining neutral despite years of Western pressure.
You're afraid because the pressure is so strong that you must take the side of the West, otherwise you'll be punished. But now we say, well, look, we engage with both, we are friendly with both.
Ultimately, Malaysia's decision to join BRICS marks a significant departure from its traditional alignment with Western powers. By embracing a more neutral stance and challenging the dominance of the US dollar, Malaysia is charting a new course in the global economy. This move is likely to have far-reaching implications for the country's economic and diplomatic relations and will be closely watched by other nations seeking to navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing world order.
And now let's talk about football, or rather let us talk about what footballers are talking about. There is a controversy raging in France about their national football team. The team is currently in Germany, playing in the Euros. They are keeping an eye on what is happening at home. France is headed for an election. President Emmanuel Macron called for snap polls after his party was dealt with a political blow. His party was defeated in the recent European Union parliamentary elections. They were defeated by the so-called the far right, France National Rally Party. So Macron has decided to gamble everything on snap election. But this has sent alarms and the ringing bells across France. And in the French football team dressing rooms, the players are speaking about the upcoming elections, which is why there is a controversy brewing. The debate is this now: should national athletes try and influence political people? Let's watch.
The advice I have for French people is to go and vote. That's the most important thing, because an abstention rate of almost 50% isn't normal.
It's definitely something that affects us all, and I think that we should all go and vote. It's really very important.
I don't want to put my political position out there, but I think that the situation in France has got alarm bells ringing, and we need to mobilize all to get everyone out voting.
France all-time leading global scooper, that is Oliver Giroud, World Cup winner and defensive stalwart, winner of the defensive Benjamin Pavard, Paris Asima, and the France winner Ousmane Dembélé, all three of them had a message for the French people: go out and vote. These three members of the French squad are urging the French public to exercise their democratic rights, which is a good thing. So you may wonder, how could this lead to a controversy? Well, this is the first time. Let us look at the statement that they had to give. Listen in.
As Ousmane Dembélé said, we must go and vote. We have to tell everyone to vote. And above all, as citizens, whether it be me or you, we have to fight every day to stop it from spreading and to stop the National Rally Party from getting into power.
The French striker Marcus Thuram didn't leave any room for doubt. His message was clear: vote to keep the National Rally Party away. The National Rally is considered as the far right. They are the Eurosceptics and the staunchly anti-immigrant. This is the part where they made a massive gains in the recent European Union Parliament elections. They emerged as the largest French party in the EU. In the parliament, they won more than 31% of the votes in France. Remember this. This is an anti-EU, anti-immigrant party, whereas the French football team is famous for its diversity. They won a FIFA Football World Cup in 2018. They were runners-up in 2022. Both times, the team was full of children and immigrants. So, of course, this is the French side. It will not like the anti-immigrant political party. No one is drilled to this point home like Kylian Mbappe, the French captain. Listen in.
We see today that the extremists are at the gates of power. We have the opportunity to choose the future of our country. That's why I call upon the youth to go out and vote, to really be aware of the importance of this situation. I hope to use my voice as best I can because you need to be able to identify with your country. We need to identify with our values, which are the values of diversity, tolerance, respect.
And this is what started the controversy. He made an also step to dig at the National Rally Party, calling the extremists this is not the same as just encouraging people to vote. Mbappe was asking them to defeat the political party. He was taking a clear stand, and that is why controversy erupted. Whether we agree on this, take it or not, the question remains, is this really a controversy? After all, people are entitled to their opinions, but somehow opinions become a problem when it becomes to come from the famous people. They are always criticized for their taking stand or refusing to do so. But in the end, free speech, they say, is for everyone. And that could be why it seems Mbappe would rather face criticism and exercise that right, rather than remain silent. We'll keep you more updated. And that international news brings us to the end of our ambassador. GBS Global, it's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. Here at the ambassador, we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. I've been your ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here at the ambassador, same time, same place at 1 p.m. And for today, we'll leave you at that, and may you all have a superb and the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe.
Everywhere.